asks, hi Martin, can we include cultural wedding photos that happened back in 2020 prior to obtaining our prospective marriage visa in our new 820 application that we wish to submit this year? So for clarity and context, Ahmed is already here on a prospective marriage visa that's already been granted to him. He's now here preparing his documentation to now submit the onshore partner visa application now that they're married. A short background information, my fiance back then in 2020 had a cultural wedding, ladies event only. A year later in 2021, she traveled to live with me in Dubai, and at the end of 2021, we got our PMV. Now, here we are married in Brisbane and planning to submit our 820 visa. My wife and I have differing opinions on this topic. She thinks it's a good idea to include the photos as a kind of wedding proof, so a good idea to include proof of the ladies only event back in 2020, whereas Ahmed's opinion is that might not be a good idea, that he doesn't want to provide too much information in relation to the past and the present. So Ahmed, when I read this question, the only thing that jumped out as problematic is whether or not in the cultural ladies event only, whether or not that could be considered a legal marriage in the country that was held. Because that's really the only thing that could be an actual issue, is if you were in fact married as part of that ceremonial or religious event, that celebration, whether or not that constitutes a legal marriage in that country, which would have meant that you would have been married prior to applying for the PMV, and therefore the PMV shouldn't have been granted to you. It would have been converted to a 309, and you would have been assessed under the 309 criteria as a married couple. However, that's quite a bit of a stretch. I suppose I'm just saying worst case scenario. It doesn't sound to me as if that is what it was. It sounds like it was a celebration only for her and her family and her friends. I wouldn't expect that would necessarily equate to a legal marriage, but that's the first question. As long as it's not that, then really there's no concerns. I have no problems in you including that documentation as part of your now 820 application. It's just part of your history. It's part of your timeline as a couple. That can certainly be identified in your relationship timeline image. So you can demonstrate that in the timeline. You can say that's when she had her, sorry guys, just getting a call. That's when she got her initial, that's when she had her celebration. But aside from that, there's really no concerns, Ahmed. And in fact, the rule of thumb is the more that you can evidence the relationship, the more you can prove the history of the relationship, the progression, what you have done as a couple leading up to now submitting the 820 application is advisable. You can't, it's not going to hurt an application by over evidencing or proving your history and your past. So, like I said, as long as it's not, sorry guys, having some tech issues on my end. As long as it's not an issue with regards to whether or not that was a marriage or not, no problems in including it as part of your documentation.